wait, we're restarting the intro. This is Gauge for Glory, the podcast where we ask, why is everything so squiggly? You the shield
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
We're doing this. I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
And the most exciting thing is that we're taking a hobby that we love, knitting, and we get to share it with more people, and in a hopefully new way, a way that you haven't seen before or want to see.
My favorite part is that we get to share your jokes with the world.
I am bad jokes.
Yeah, but not like bad, like they're evil, but
Yeah.
they're corny, and I love them.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I've had a lifetime of training.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess we should start off with, who are you?
Oh, I would love to know. Somebody tell me who I am, and then that would make it. So I'm Leslie. I have been knitting since I was a wee thing, a young girl. My grandmother taught me, and I was knitting as a little kid, but after a little while I dropped off. And then in college, I really wanted a Harry Potter sweater. And the only way at that time to get one was to make it yourself. So I went to the store, I picked it all back up. There's some sort of muscle memory, with knitting when you start and you're like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So from there, since my undergrad in college, I've been knitting, and I have some things to show for it. So
I think that's the understatement of the show today. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Who are you?
Oh, hi, I'm Rachel. In my day job, in the time that I am not knitting, which is, the unfortunate times, I work in public relations, and then the rest of the time I knit. I also got taught, my grandmother taught me when I was in my teens, taught me how to knit, and she taught me combination style, which when I came back to the craft years later, I thought I just forgot how to knit or just didn't know it. But that was a very interesting way to teach me. So she taught me when I was in my teens, and I started with a scarf, which to me is like the toughest project to start with because there's so much to go.
We both sort of restarted with scarves.
Did you? Oh, I started with scarves.
Oh, you started with scarves.
And I abandoned knitting because of scarves. So I've got like a deep-seated hate for scarves. I just have to be, that's why I haven't finished a shawl yet.
How many knitters do you think have abandoned knitting altogether because somebody started them on a scarf? Or they were like, no, I know, I'll knit a scarf, it'll be easy. And then, so the rule about scarves, right, is that you're supposed to knit them as long as the person is tall. So
I didn't know
that is the rule. Yeah, that is the unofficial, maybe it's an official rule. I guess we'll find out.
You know what? There are no rules in knitting. Okay,
There are no rules. Guideline.
I'm sorry. Well, I guess you know what? The Knitting Guild Association does have rules. There are best practices, right? There are no rules though. But that's the one thing that, like, coming back to the craft. And the reason kind of why we'll get into why we wanted to start this podcast is because there are so many different ways to achieve the result you want.
Yeah.
Right? Like English, continental, like the styles can be different.
Right.
But sorry, go ahead. Yeah, but yeah, I do agree. So the rule for the scarf, long as you are tall.
Well, we can call it a guideline if that makes everybody feel better. But that's generally how you know if a scarf is long enough. Because you think about, they'll wear it at least with half of it. Think about that person's wingspan. So, yeah, I think it's a tough one. It's a tough sell. I guess people who abandoned knitting because they were sick of doing a scarf are not watching this. But
right here.
Well, I mean, but you.
But I did come back.
You came back. Well, so if you're out there and you're like, this, I can't do it, or I can, or I don't know, just stay. We're gonna walk you through it.
Yeah, get rid of the scarf and pick up circular needles.
Yes, exactly. Do a hat,
which is a great segue back to. So that's what happened to me. I started with a hat. So maybe like about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. I was up in Alexandria, lived there, and I went to Fiberspace, and Fiberspace is just this beautiful store. that I used to walk by going on the train every day. And I was like, oh, I wish I knit so that I could go in there and experience that. And so finally I did. I went in and I was like, can I have a private lesson? And I told the lady, I was like, I abandoned knitting I mean, I've picked up that scarf so many times. I've gone to Joann's. I've bought the straight needles. I've bought the yarn, even beautiful yarn. And I get about this far in and I'm like, this is never going to be over. And why is everything so like squiggly? But she introduced me to
wait, we're restarting the intro. This is Gauge for Glory, the podcast where we ask, why is everything so squiggly?
Why is it squiggly?
It's a great question.
I don't know.
And actually, we're going to find out.
We will.
There's actually a reason why things are so squiggly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went to Fiberspace and she's like, start with a hat. And I picked up circular needles. And honestly, that felt so right. And I started with hats. I started with circular knitting. I found some YouTubers, specifically like Akuta Vakika. She's been I'm a fangirl.
Shout out.
As you know.
Shout out.
She does video tutorials and it just made it so accessible to me, which is what I found. Yeah. And I just wanted to learn more. And so I did. I started like watching YouTube videos on techniques like every night. And then I started picking patterns that were really difficult. I had that thing that I love to talk about, like beginners be delusional. Like just a little bit delulu and like dive into those patterns that don't feel like you're ready for it because you're ready now. And that's what I found. So that's kind of what led me here.
Yeah, I was driven by a different beast. It was the beast of nerdery. I wanted things that appealed to me based on the fandoms that I love, the stories that I love. And of course, there wasn't as big a market coming up for that. Now there are a lot of other places where you can find those things, but in, the land before time with the dinosaurs, when I grew up, you had to like make it yourself. There was no other option. So like I said, I wanted a Harry Potter scarf. Like I wanted Lord of the Rings things. I wanted nerdy fantasy looking things.
Yeah.
And then I realized you could base a whole wardrobe in knitting, and both for winter and for summer. So here I am, up in your feed.
So that's a great segue. So what are we doing here, and why are we recording ourselves but having a conversation in the craft room?
Yeah, or in the craft room. You're going to see a lot of this craft room because we're basically going to commit and go through the Master Hand Knitter program.
Wish us luck.
We're guided by a force greater than luck.
Yes.
The force, even, if you will. The knitting force, if there's like a knitting force in the universe, we begin to ask, why are things so squiggly? And then it brings us to bigger questions of good and evil.
Right. And the answer is blocking.
Yeah. Oh, and gauge washing.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Gauge washing. And yeah, that's why we're going to gauge for glory. Yeah. So we're just about to start. So Leslie, I think you're going to probably start before me. So I guess we should talk about what is the Hand Knitter program.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So the Master Hand Knitter program is, is it a qualification or a certification? Accreditation? I guess we should have looked that up.
I guess it is a certification.
Yeah, it's a certification through the Knitting Guild Association. And so that's like a large nonprofit whose focus, if you look at their mission, is focused on education. And so they have a variety of different programs available for knitters and for people who want to be knitters. Some of them include a basics course. There are tension courses, finishing. And then you get into some of their series like that we're interested in. So there's an instructor's course. There's a professional knitter's course. What we're going to do is the Master Hand Knitter course. And what that does is you go through 3 different levels. You are doing research. You're showing that you know why you have to do things the way you do them. There are rules in knitting, I guess, some rules. At least there are best practices, right?
Yes.
And you're doing the research. You have to research like 2 different sources on how to make a knit stitch. right? So you're going back to the basics to really understand knitting in a way that, you'll have this, a master level knowledge of it. You go through 3 different levels, you knit a bunch of swatches. There are some projects that we'll talk about once we do your unboxing.
It's kind of a big deal. Not everybody who starts it finishes it. We are doing this in recording it partially to keep ourselves honest and to keep us doing it as well.
And partially because it's on my millennial bingo card.
Ah!
I've got plants, crafting. I have a dog. So I need this one to really like round out the set.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is definitely an elder millennial impulse to not only craft, but to also record said craft and basically collect it like a badge.
Yes. Which we get a badge at the end.
Yeah, we do.
Once
It's
we get
like
certified,
a
little pin. Yeah, I know. That'll be
doing it for that.
Yeah.
It's funny because I knew of the program, but I didn't, it was sort of one of those things that other people did. It was like, oh, that knitter went through the hand knitting program, or they tried it, or they did a level of it. And you're like, oh, sure, those people. And then I should back up and say that we're both members of a local knitting guild because
that's how we met.
Yep. That is how we met.
Also, yeah. Here, I have the glass. I'm not wearing
here,
I'll do it. Let me do it.
But we're members of the local knitting guild. It's a great community, diverse members, different ages, different backgrounds. And one of the things that is important to the guild is teaching and learning. So it's what they call a teaching guild. So it incorporates teaching moments, learning moments, classes. There's a retreat with classes every year. And so not too long ago, they brought in Heather Storta, who's a master hand knitter. And she walked us through some of in the classes what a master hand knitter would be evaluated on. So we all had to do gauge swatches for her, and she went around the room and evaluated us.
Let me pause you right there. I just want to show you. This is not from the class itself. I'll talk about what these are from in a little bit, but this is when we're talking about doing gauge swatches for the program. This is what we're talking about. So you knit according to some directions. Now, normally you would weave in your ends. I obviously haven't done that yet, or blocked, but that's kind of what you're knitting to be evaluated on.
Yeah. So we did that, and it struck me that I understood what she was talking about. It wasn't something that
was that like a moment of shock for you? Or were you like surprised that you had achieved that level of knowledge?
There was no surprise, only familiarity.
Ah.
It was like, oh, I get this. This is what I've thought about this before, but I haven't done it in any formal way.
Yeah.
And so, everything she was saying to me were things that made sense. And I tend to, in the terminology, and we'll talk more about what this means, but I tend to row out at the end of my purl rows, which means that when I start a purl row, I'm not as tight as I need to be. So I need to tighten up my purl rows when I start. And so that's unique to my type of knitting. And it changes whether I do English style. I was raised in the English style.
Literally and figuratively, right?
Yes, my grandmother, who was British, taught me English style. I, over time, taught myself continental because it was faster, especially for those long rows of knits or long rows of purls. And actually, for purling, I do a different, I do Portuguese style.
Do you? Oh, we'll have to show that. That'll be fun. Yeah.
So just basically no real thought behind it besides what works best for me.
Yeah. That's what you have to do as a knit. Part of the reason for me why I want to do this and, why I want to do the program is because I want to learn the right way. I want to learn because I want to make mistakes. I want to make choices about my style and what I do on purpose. I don't want to make it by accident because I don't know what I'm doing. And I came to the program a lot differently than you, I think. one of the most prolific and knitters that I personally know is in the guild, Chuck.
Yeah.
And he was working on the professional knitter course, and I was asking him, I'm like, how do you learn? I mean, I took one of his brioche classes last year, and that changed my knitting. I mean, he taught me how to like drop down and like fix stuff. I ended up taking 4 rows of brioche down by the end of that course for a cowl.
Chuck is a
fix
legend.
it, right? Like he gave me the confidence to do that. And so I approached him and I'm like, how did you get to be so good? Like if I want to learn I like school. Okay. As my husband will tell you. I like school. I like learning. I like the structure of a program where I'm going to walk through and by the end I have mastery of a skill or, whatever it may be. So for me, he said, he's like, this would give you structure. This would teach you through. And, I wasn't really super confident since I haven't been knitting. I haven't come back to knitting for very long. Like I think you definitely have more knitting history than I do. So what I did at the advice of the Facebook group for the Master Hand Knitter course, and we should say, we forgot to do a disclaimer. We are not sponsored by TKGA at all. We are just a couple of ladies who enjoy each other's company and hope you will also enjoy our company. So there's a Master Hand Knitter Facebook group. And so I went through there and I was like, hey, this is where I'm at. And so many people were so encouraging. But what they said is start with maybe the basics course. So I did. I started on the basics course and already my knitting has improved, which is just, I think it's funny because it is good to be a little delusional, but at some point you have to realize that you still have a lot to learn. And that's where I'm at here. I want to learn.
I think the delusion is healthy when it applies to things that you want to make or techniques that you want to try. You shouldn't let the fact that it might be complex or complicated stop you from at least trying it, with the understanding that maybe as you go along, there's an opportunity to improve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I guess what do you think? Okay. So we're at right now. So I'm taking the basics course. I'm on level 2 of that. Through that course, I realized that my tension in flat knitting is atrocious. Atrocious.
The worst I've seen.
It's so terrible. So all of these, I can see. I don't know if we can see. These are my purl rows. You can see because, pearls add just like that tiny little bit of extra yarn, and for me it's extremely visible. So through the basics course I realized that I would benefit from taking the taming tension course, which I'm just about to finish the first level for. So I know I'm going to start these first, but have you purchased it yet? Have you purchased the program yet?
No. In fact, when I was taking the Heather Storter class, I took it with my mom, and my mom and I were kind of hanging out after the class. I was talking to Heather about it because I said, well, what does this entail? Tell me more. And she very concisely explained it's 3 levels. You start at level 1. Level 1 is all of the basics. Can you master basic gauge for knit purl? Can you do a mitten? There are specific things that you're required to complete as a part of the program. And there's also an academic component. And so talking about liking school, but do it knitting style. So not just guided by what work we're producing, but also what are we doing in terms of the academic output is more focused on some of it's going to be history focused.
I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that.
I've already bookmarked some things.
Yeah, so. I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah. Chuck did like a 15-minute presentation about the history and hearing about the knitting guilds of the medieval times and how they the socks they used to. Anyways, I think that's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah. So not just where we've come from, but also where you are in terms of the things that you know. So, and why you're making the choices that you're making. So it's one of those things where I think there's some room to still retain your personal style, to retain your personal habits in knitting or, preferences in knitting. So there's no rule that says you have to do it English style or you have to do it continental. You can do it however you knit. But you have to be thoughtful about those choices and basically do the work to research why you're making those searches.
Exactly.
And explain that.
Yeah. And why that's...
They're sitting there. Explain yourself.
I don't think they're going to be. I don't know.
They might not say it like that. That could be. That was a dramatic reenactment.
And the only reason I bring it up is because, so the other reason why we wanted to do this, why we want to document the process as we're going through it is, we're both elder millennials. We're the target demographic for YouTube, along with, honestly, it's like 96% of Americans who are on social media watch YouTube. Anyways, I work in PR for my day job, so there's your little PR tidbit. It's insanely high. Anyways, we, of course, like any professional YouTuber, anyone who is like trying to use the University of Tube, I looked for videos about this, right? And so there are a few. Heather Sordo has one. Another podcaster I really love is Tahania Lyons, who's the Nerdy Knitter. And there are some videos about the Master Hand Knitted program, but a lot of them are like, here's my binder for level 1. And it walks you through, like, you can't, obviously you don't show the instructions or whatever, but it'll show you, here are the swatches I had to do. Maybe it's an unboxing whenever somebody gets it back, when you've gotten feedback from the judges or from the folks who are assessing you. But we haven't found anything that was as we were going through the process. And so, I think the thing to remember is that you don't have to be a master to start. That was the big thing that I got in the feedback from the basics course. I was like, I wanted to do this to see if I'm ready. And Arenda Holiday is my instructor for that course. And she's the president of the TKGA.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, just remember, you don't have to be a master hand knitter to start. You can be wherever you're at. So don't be afraid. And if you want to join us, we're getting started to do this now. We literally haven't even bought the program yet. So if you want to join us, we encourage you to.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I'm a scholarship student. My mom overheard me talking to Heather, saw that I was interested in it. And for my birthday that year, gave me some money to start. So she said she didn't want me to not do it. She was basically removing any excuses or barriers of like, I just don't have the money right now or whatever. She said, no, you can do it.
I think that's really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really sweet.
Mom.
Well, we know we'll have one viewer.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I said. I was like, my mom will watch it.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up today, I wanted to kind of just again, just to like level the playing field here, we have not bought the instructions yet. We haven't haven't
seen a thing.
Now I'll be fair. Yeah. I have gone on Ravelry. Mm-hmm. Did you know they have, there's a couple of projects in there that you can look up, like the level 1, what the swatches should look like, and how many you have to knit. So in there, so I do have a little bit of familiarity about what we will be knitting, at least for the knitted garment. The level 1 project is a mitten. Have you done a mitten before?
I have done fingerless gloves. So I imagine that a mitten is the fingerless gloves with sort of the sock ends on your hand.
Okay. I watched a woman yesterday who told me she ended up doing 3. I've never done a mitten.
Okay.
She said she's done 3 mittens because she wanted to make sure the thumb joint was perfect on it. So she knit 3 to submit 1. So I have a feeling that's going to be a lot of what we're doing is.
The next time you see us, this table will be covered in mittens.
But what she said, one of the biggest things that her key takeaway was that she got the instructions and dove into the knitting before doing some of the research and some of the lookups that she was supposed to do. And then she said for level 2, she wasn't going to make that mistake, which I'm grateful to the folks who have shared their experience on YouTube, because again, that's something that we've learned, that I've learned now that, can help us in our interview. So that's where we're at. We don't know a whole lot about the program other than what we've shared so far. Yeah. So I'd like to get your take on, what do you think it's going to be like? Kind of overall, and then we'll talk a little bit more about. Yeah,
I think it's going to force me to go through a process when I tend to be a little more chaotic in my approach to everything, but especially knitting. It's a hobby. I have never taken any sort of process approach. I like taking classes. I like learning techniques. I apply them when it seems relevant. But other than that, and so I think this is going to require a specific level of organization that I may not have done in the past, a specific process that I don't always do. I don't love gauge swatching because I just want to get on with it. And I'll figure it out as I go along. But that is not how this program works. So
the end result is the gauge swatch.
Well, and the thing that I know about myself is that once I understand it and I have it all set to go, I can do it. That's not the problem. I think it's just, again, training myself to view knitting through a process.
Honestly, I think this is where it's going to come in very handy that we're doing this as like sort of a cohort. Once I get started too, because organization is definitely my thing. And I already have like the binders picked out. I've got my little like tabs I'm going to do.
That's so funny. You're like, you're going to have to put stuff in a binder. I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll go by the store and get a binder or
Leslie,
something.
I haven't told you this yet. I actually even bought these little like printable labels so that we can,
that's amazing.
So that we can just like, so we can put our address. You have to put your address and stuff on the each swatch. So we can just print off a bunch with our addresses and our email addresses.
I love that.
And then we can attach them later. Yeah. So I feel like that's where having a cohort here. But just to be clear, like obviously we each have to do this individually, and it's our individual knitting that is going to be evaluated per the regulations.
Yeah. So, and each of our academic work or whatever written components and research components have to.
And I think this is going to be a challenge, but I think it's going to definitely like deepen our knowledge of knitting and the history behind especially. And I'm going to love to be able to say like, oh, whenever I'm teaching a beginner class and somebody's like, well, why do you do it that way? Well, let me tell you. per Vogue knitting book, whatever, no, of course I'm not going to do it like that. But I think in a way it's going to definitely give me the confidence to teach other people in a way that I feel like I have now for some beginner classes, but I want to teach some other classes and, I want to make sure that I have the skills before I try to teach anybody, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you think the highest highs are going to be? And then we'll compound that with the lowest lows.
I think, I've already done a gauge swatch for other Storta, and it didn't feel bad.
Yeah.
I think some people were feeling bad about it in the class. Yeah, getting feedback was actually kind of nice because I thought, oh yeah, I guess I do row out all my pearls, and that's something I should pay attention to, especially if I'm evaluating it like this. So for me, I think I'm going to enjoy learning, because when you get things wrong, when you don't do them perfectly, you have an opportunity to learn something. So not getting it right has its benefits. I do think not having a knitted object at the end of this, besides one mitten. I mean, I guess I could always do 2 mittens. Crazy idea.
I'm sure we're going to do more than 1 mitten. I'm definitely going to do more than 1 mitten.
But yeah, I'm anticipating that the learning is what's going to keep me going, even if I'm just knitting gauge squares. I think the gauge squares are going to be like, okay, let's do another one.
I feel like that too. I think the valleys are easier for me to. I think the peaks are going to be when you get it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever had to do like a math? I'm not a math person. I do words, not numbers. But like math has always been very challenging for me. But there's that like moment where the light bulb clicks on and you're like, oh, I understand this equation.
Okay.
Do you not have that experience?
My dad always told me elementary school, middle school, high school would help me with my maths.
Okay.
Told me every single time at some point it will click. Don't worry, it'll click. Mm-hmm. There's just going to be, and he described it as this magical moment.
Yes.
Where something in my brain was just going to suddenly make sense. I am waiting for that day. It has not happened. I have not seen it. I'm not calling my dad a liar, but I definitely don't know that it happened for me. So I'm glad it happened for you.
Okay. Well then, hopefully you have this experience with knitting.
Well, that's what I think I had during Heather's class.
Okay, yeah.
So while it hasn't happened with math, sorry. It has happened with knitting where I thought, oh, this all makes sense.
Okay, but can we talk about this for a minute? I had no idea that knitting would include so much math. And
if I
it's a lot of basic math, right? Like it's stuff that you don't normally, maybe sometimes need a calculator, but generally don't need a calculator for. But I had no idea that I would be doing so many calculations.
Isn't it a kick in the teeth?
It really is. It really is. I'm like, here I am with my fun crafting hobby. And then I'm go to like makeup or go to work on a pattern and I'm like, wait, my gauge is off. I have to do a series of complex equations to figure out what I want to make this and what size I should use. That was a shock for me. I don't know about you.
Yes. I don't know that it was shocking more than just if I had known, I would have paid more attention. I would have tried a little bit harder. And maybe that's why things never clicked in math class. Maybe it's
because it wasn't knitting because they didn't use knitting patterns as the examples.
Yeah, it didn't have any significance to me.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, enough math bashing.
Yeah,
sure.
You know.
Anyways, yeah, some of the other. So I think that's going to be like the peaks for me is like learning these techniques, and then being able to use them. When we're at knitting circle, or if somebody has a problem, or if somebody's like, what did I do here? And you can look at it and you're like, oh, I know. And here's how you can fix it.
Right.
You know, so I think those will be some of the peaks. The valleys, I think getting the feedback is going to be a little difficult.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I mean, I don't think that I'm some great knitter, so at least I don't feel like my expectations are gonna, have that far to fall.
Right.
But I do think, it's hard to get criticism from people. What do you think about that? How are you gonna handle that?
Sometimes you just, the way I handle hard things is I cry and then I deal with it.
It's a
cry,
process,
just
man.
get it out,
Yeah.
cry, and then realize no one is gonna do it for you. You just got to do it.
That's the end of the day. And I guess the thing is, like, I think the way I'm going to handle it is I'm going to do it with you.
Yes.
I'm going to open and get the feedback with you because you're so positive even whenever, like, I might be critical of something. You have a great way of just being like, here's, like, the tiniest bit of a bright side. Not in, like, a way that you're just demeaning my original problem, but in a way that, like, makes me realize, oh, yeah, there is some positive here. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to do it with you. And then I think the other thing, too, is just to remind myself and remind us, I guess, it's not a fail and you're done, right? It's you didn't do this right or it wasn't up to the standard. Here's how you can get it there. Resubmit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh no, we have to resubmit.
Yeah, getting grades throughout life has also done us disservice because that's not how life works.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know why school is the only place where you receive like grades on things. It's like, So I'm sure the thing that we'll be telling each other is this is not about what grade you got on this assignment. It's about, did you meet the criteria? And if you haven't, you just have to resubmit it.
Yeah.
That's the end of. So I think we'll be saying that a lot to each other is like, this is not a fail. You didn't fail this. You
didn't fail your swatch.
Resubmit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like writing. It's a draft.
Right.
And you just have to edit.
Oh gosh. That's right. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Well, what else? Is there anything else you wanted to add for this week? I think, next week we're going to plan on, you're going to purchase the package.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of dive in and look through a bit of an unboxing, if you will, for our electronic package. And then what's the plan of attack, right?
That's the plan. Okay. Yeah. Because I think I'm going to, I think my expectation is that I will open all of it and be like, okay, I'm not doing all of this right away.
Maybe reading it.
I might read most of it. I will probably just take it piece by piece.
That's okay. That's okay. I think it's swatch by swatch, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
this is the news. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in to Gauge for Glory.
Remember, stay steady,
stay inspired,
and keep those needles moving toward mastery.
Until next time, knit on with purpose
and pride.